Morning. Welcome to this episode of The Kindness Project. I am one of your hosts, Chris Ames, and I am joined by a girl who this morning had what for breakfast? A toasty. What did you have in your toasty?
Ham and cheese, like I have in my toasty every morning.
Who always has the same ham and cheese toasty every single morning? It's Charlotte Ames.
And I'm joined by a man who switched his brew to instant. It's Chris Ames.
You know what? The problem is, while I've been on lockdown, I've been drinking a lot more percolated coffee, and the challenge I've got is like 2 cups of that, and I am bouncing off the wall. So I'm back on the instant. Hope you're enjoying your morning coffee, and hope you're having a lovely morning. We're also joined by an amazing guest, the brilliant Shelley Hart. How are you?
I'm good, thank you very much. Morning to everybody.
Good morning. So a couple of things we want to talk about before we interview Shelley. First of all, let's do the question of the podcast today. We've already got some amazing answers for this already, but I want you to share live your answer. What's been the most unusual thing you've Googled whilst in lockdown? What's your answer to that, Charlotte?
It probably was about 2 days ago, and I was...
You're writing a book at the minute, aren't you?
Yeah, but I had this idea for another book, and it led me down a very unusual Googling path.
Well, that's what inspired the question, because I was like, right, because I sat down next to you the other day, and you went to me, Dad, is hemlock poisonous? So I was like, why are you asking that?
Yeah, it turns out, trace amounts, 0.1 grams can kill a man within 3 hours.
Amazing. Yeah, the fact that you know that scares me. Shelley, what's the most unusual thing you've Googled since lockdown?
Well, we could open a whole big can of worms there, so we won't go there. But recently, I Googled box tree caterpillar pest, because we also look after the Secret Garden for the Blind at Harry Lodge Park, and we went over there to check it, and the box caterpillar has eaten all our 4 plants that have been there for 40 odd years. So I was a bit perplexed on how I'm going to treat those pests and get my plants looking nice.
Fair enough. So that's quite an unusual Google. So thank you for that. Hi to morning to Jess, morning to Tracy for getting involved this morning. Really appreciate you joining us, and we'd love to hear your answer to the question of the podcast, which is, what is your most unusual Google search since lockdown? Charlotte, do you want to share where people can get in touch with us?
I thought you were going to ask me to share more of my Google results. People were about to get real concerned about me.
Well, I'm a bit worried about you sharing your Google results, to be honest. So yeah.
I mean, some of the things you've asked me to Google.
Like what?
That time you asked me to Google how much coffee it takes for caffeine overdose. Never know. Because...
Where can people get in touch with us?
Yeah. So, if you're currently watching this, you're on our Facebook. Hi, you guys. Welcome. Dad's looking at me funny.
Cool.
Anyway, but if you're not, if you just search the Kindness Project podcast in the top bar, then we should come up. But if you want to get in touch with us in other forms, we have a Twitter at Ola Kindness. We have an Instagram at Ola Kindness.
Yeah.
I think it's at Ola
You can find us on the website, which is www.thekindnesproject.co.uk. You need to expand, Shelley, so she pops up in the screen.
I knew that was an issue.
And you can find us all over, and you can get access to our 130 different podcast episodes that we've recorded over the last couple of years, with brilliant people doing amazing stuff in the world, in their communities, all over the world as well. So we've been lucky enough over the last couple of weeks to interview people as far as China and as local as 2 streets away. So and Shelley's one of our more local guests, because she works in just down the road in Havering. Are you in the office today, Shelley?
We've been in the office ever since, we haven't missed a day. We've been working flat out, making sure we abide by social distancing and sanitising everything. But our project has been really vital to the community, so we've been in every single day. I think it's something like 65 days lockdown or something, isn't it?
Yeah, and a few more by the looks of it coming up. So it'd be interesting to see. The other thing I want to talk about, just on a personal note, is apparently I'm repeating myself quite a lot because the girls have created a tally chart. And effectively, it's Chris Dames bingo, and apparently these are the things that I'm saying quite a lot at the minute. I'm saying Zoom quite a lot because we're using Zoom for all our meetings.
He hasn't even ended yet. It's the winner already.
I'm asking the girls to make me a tea quite a lot, so that comes up. You know what? One of the most popular ones is shut that door. Because you two keep on opening the door and leaving it open, don't you?
It's not me.
Oh, it's the little one. All right, we'll let you off on that one. And then
Honourable mentions to This Too Shall Pass. And
This Too Shall Pass.
the end
Yeah.
of capitalism.
Yeah, so because I've been doing all my work calls from the dining room, the girls have been listening in, and while we've been trying to make sure our clients are taking a longer term measured approach, I've been using This Too Shall Pass quite a lot in all my calls, aren't I?
Yep.
So, unofficial question of the podcast is: what are you saying quite a lot of at the minute that you never said before? Shelley, have you got an answer to that?
I just think, oh my God, and, panic.
Yeah. And I'd imagine it's quite a busy, busy time every day for you at the minute.
We have been absolutely inundated. And I'll just give you a little stat to start you off here.
Yeah.
This time last year, we took 137 calls in a month.
Right.
And in one day, we took 482. And since we've been in the coronavirus epidemic, we have taken 8,900 calls in just over 7 weeks.
Blimey, that is huge, isn't it? Is that all
And
from?
we're a very small team, so literally we've been responding to the community requests. Our phone has been ringing off the hook, so we've quadrupled. I'm not very good at maths, I can't work out the percentage of our call ratio. It has absolutely been phenomenal.
And is that from people who need help from volunteers, or from both?
Most of those are from people that need help, request help, want information, just want to register for help just in case.
Yeah.
And in a year, we normally have, on average, since we've been going, about 1,000 volunteers a year.
Right.
And since the coronavirus, we've taken and registered 639 new volunteers. So we're over halfway, again, for a whole year ratio in just 7 weeks. So,
Yeah, it's huge.
We have been exceptionally busy.
So we're gonna share a bit more about Shelley's amazing work in a minute. Before we do that, just want to mention we've got a guy who always helps us out on every single one of our live podcasts. An amazing guy called Dave Forsdyke. He shares his silver linings of the podcast and some of the positive stuff that's happening out there in the current situation. So I want to share some of those stories. Firstly, he mentions the fact that zookeepers are keeping the spirits high by dancing. Now, there's been a lot of dancing going on in lockdown, hasn't there? Particularly, my younger daughter is obsessed by TikTok, and I did agree to make a TikTok video with her later, so that'll be coming. But the one of the positive sides of what's going on is the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, and TfL have unveiled their London Street Space programme, designed to encourage a massive increase in cycling and walking when lockdown restrictions are eased. The plans aim for a permanent reduction in emission levels and a much healthier capital. So that'd be interesting to see. The Global Energy Review from the International Energy Agency shows a huge reduction in fossil fuels, and CO2 emissions should be falling by quite a decent amount. And the elusive artist Banksy has dropped off his latest work at Southampton General Hospital with a note saying, "Thanks for all you're doing. I hope this brightens the place up a bit, even if it's only in blank black and white. And the piece of art Banksy's produced is amazing, isn't it? Have you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen pictures of it.
Yeah. So definitely look that up. We'll put a link in the show notes so you can have a look at how that's helped. And the other thing is, people are recovering from the virus. The oldest person in the world to recover from coronavirus has been 103 in Italy. So that's really good news. And Rita Reynolds is the oldest person in the UK. You know what I love? An onomatopoeic name. Rita Reynolds. That's lovely. I love that. She's aged 99 and she's a great grandmother from Liverpool, and she's made a recovery as well. So part of our remit on the Kindness Project is to share stories of people doing amazing stuff in the world.
Did you see on that news the woman who she caught the coronavirus and she survived it, and everyone was like, she survived the Spanish flu. She survived
Did she?
Yeah, like a world war.
Yeah.
And she got the coronavirus and she still pulled through.
Listen, if you survived the Spanish flu and the World War, the coronavirus is a walk in the park, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's just like sort of coronavirus. You having a laugh? That's not going to get me. But yeah,
that little dust particle on my shoulder.
yeah. But yeah, no, I think interestingly, and seeing as we've recently had D-Day, if we're going to learn anything about resilience, it's going to be from that older generation, isn't it? Because what we're going through now in lockdown, and we've had this conversation before, what we're going through now in lockdown is nothing compared to what people of previous generations have gone through. And one other thing that I want to talk about before we get on to Shelley is The Lord of the Flies. Now, I know, what do you think of The Lord of the Flies?
I like the book.
Yeah.
I know you're not particularly a fan, and I struggled to get into it in the first 2 chapters.
Yeah.
But then you look into the symbolism and all that, and I forgot all about it. I forgot all about it because at the time I was reading the book, it was like, this is really cool, and now it's like, I can't remember a thing about the symbolism.
Yeah, so interestingly, The Lord of the Flies is about a bunch of kids whose plane goes down and they get stranded on an island.
Was it not written by a teacher who didn't
William,
like his class?
William Golding, it was written by. However, there's one really important thing. Shelley, have you read Lord of the Flies?
I have, but do you know what? I don't think I was interested in it too much, and I've forgotten about it.
Yeah, but the interesting thing about the books is it paints a picture of these kids landing on this island and just the world be like it all being super chaotic and them killing each other and stuff like that. And interestingly, there's a new book that's come out written by a guy called Rutger Bregman called Humankind, who said that was William Golding's fiction, and actually would people be as selfish in that situation as William Golding believed and what he wrote about. And the reality was, in 1966, there was an actual plane crash. 65. There was an actual plane crash where kids got stranded on the island for a year. And guess what? They lived quite peacefully and did okay. And Rutger's argument in his book, which isn't out yet, I'm going to pick it up when it is actually we are generally good. And Shelley, I suppose you see that a lot in the people who volunteer, right? Do you think most people are generally good?
Definitely. I think there's far, far more good in the world than there is bad. Unfortunately,
100%.
bad publicity is the highlight, and good publicity tends not to, unfortunately. But there are an awful lot more good people out there than bad, and you have to have faith in human kindness and faith in the human being, and I think we will triumph over evil all the time, and there is far, far more good than bad.
100%. I think you're right. I think sometimes some of the stories we tell in the news and some of the stories we tell in fiction are about the worst components of our human nature, but generally we wouldn't exist as a human race if we didn't work together, and I think that's important to remember. So that book is called Humankind. It's by a guy called Rutger Bregman. While I was out running last night, I listened to a podcast called Reasons to be Cheerful. He was on there talking about his book.
You're really trying to uplift your mood lately, mate.
I am, yeah, definitely. and certainly that's something that we should encourage, more positive news in the world. And on that note, I want to interview Shelley. Thank you so much for coming on the Kindness Project. We really appreciate it. So we can start, just in case people don't know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, so thank you very much for inviting me on today. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I'm Shelley Hart, and I'm the CEO and founder of the Havering Volunteer Centre. I've been fortunate that I've been working all my life. I started work at 16. I left school on the Friday and started work on the Monday. Those were the days back then that you could do that.
What was your first job?
I actually worked at the Newham Council in the rates department. Don't hate me for that. And I started there at 16. I was there for 5 years. Left there, went to work in the Building Society nationwide. Left there, went to work in London, and left there. And then I started to work in the voluntary sector in 2000.
Okay.
So I've actually been in the voluntary sector. Will be my 21st year next year. So I'll have to try and celebrate that.
And what branch of Nationwide were you at? Were you at an East London one?
Forest Gate.
Oh, right, okay. My first ever job, well, actually, no, my second ever job, I had a misstart early in my career, because I did a year in recruitment in Bow and hated it, and then I started at the Woolwich in East Ham. So it was amazing. Yeah, well, you know what? Recruitment's a weird one because I liked the engagement with people. That was a really good part of the job. Challenge it's a real high pressure sales environment, and I like relationships with people. It's an interesting one, but yeah. So yeah, it was a good experience back in the day when building societies actually existed.
Yeah, when they were proper building societies.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how you got into the voluntary sector.
Well, I was made redundant from my job in London. It was just after or just before the 9/11, and I didn't want to work in London anymore. I didn't like London. I've always worked local, and I was in London for 16 years, so I thought I fancied a change. I was made redundant, didn't know what I wanted to do. And I saw a job advertised in the local Romford Recorder for victim support.
Okay.
And I thought, yeah, I quite fancied that, applied and got it, and absolutely fell in love with the work that victim support did. I love the voluntary sector. I love the ethos of the voluntary sector. Working from in London in a big, high-powered, multi-million-pound organisation to a very, very small local charity where you had to fight for a paperclip was a stark reality. But the difference in the work that we produced, working for the voluntary sector, working with victims of crime, it just sat comfortably with me. And I've been in the voluntary sector, as I say, ever since I'm celebrating my 21st year next year. Amazing.
And I'd imagine you see the impacts of your work pretty immediately, right?
Yes, definitely. Looking back on my career, I've always been people facing. So I think I'm naturally drawn to people. I am a people person, and I love the interaction with the general public. You never know what you're going to get. No 2 days are the same. Yeah. And it brings the diversity and richness of our community, and you see life at the front line. Some of it's tragic, some of it's sad, but you know what? We're there to help, and through our kindness and our support, we can change lives, and we do transfer lives. So for the last 21 years, I have been working with volunteers, and they'll never cease to amaze me. Their generosity, the time they give is absolutely amazing, and I can't speak highly enough of volunteers.
Amazing. Charlotte, you got a question?
So what kind of work have you been doing during this current situation,
Well, generally, our day job is we recruit volunteers for the community, and we help voluntary and community organisations place those volunteers with them. So we've actually done 360-degree flipped our line of business round, because what we're doing now isn't what we normally do in our day job. So now we are responding to the community need, and most of that is with emergency food bags. So people that are in this crisis that had to go into lockdown, they can't get out, they can't get food. And we have been supplying them with free bags of food and also getting their medication. So, you know, that was the main thing, is that was why the calls have been so high.
Yeah.
Is that people were calling out for help. And one thing that we have realised is there is an awful lot of lonely, isolated people out there, even people that we hadn't realised, that normally were self-sufficient, normally would have, you know, happily sorted themselves out every day, going out, getting their shopping. Now, due to lockdown and isolation, they are very, very isolated themselves, and they needed someone to get their shopping for them, or their medication, and we were that call.
So tell us a bit about the background and the history of the Havering Volunteer Centre.
So I in 2014 I joined HAVCO, which was the Havering Association of Volunteering Organisations, and they closed in 2015, and I was the manager of the volunteer centre there. And the volunteer centre was too good to close and walk away, and HAVCO absolutely 100% ceased.
Okay.
And I just thought, I can't let this go, because volunteers would come and say, well, where am I going to volunteer? And organisers saying, well, I need volunteers, where am I going to go? So I asked the team that was working with me, if I set it up on my own, would you come? And they absolutely said yes. So the local authority gave me a little bit of seed funding to start off, and I literally started with a piece of paper and a paper clip.
Yeah.
Costa Coffee was my office. I used to work out of Costa's. And from 2015, if you think I started with zero and a blank page and nothing, to where we are today, and we have a core bank of over 3,000 volunteers, and I'm working with about 290 different voluntary organisations.
It's amazing work.
I have about 700 different volunteering roles. And they say, if you build it, they will come. And that is a very, very true analogy, because they have come, and they've come in droves. And I can't thank the people enough for that.
Shelley, there must have been a bit of a liberation about being able to start from scratch, though, right? Because you can build it the way that you think you can help people the most.
Oh, definitely. What we did, I looked at the service, and there wasn't anything wrong with the service that we were delivering before when we was under HAVCO's regime, but we wanted to make it different. And how could we make it different? And we made it, they used to be a signposting agency, and we made it from a signposting agency into a referral agency. And even with the best will in the world and the best determination in the world, if you give someone a piece of paper, they may leave you and think, yeah, I'll do that. But if we actually make that referral for them and make that connection to that organisation and get them volunteering that way, we have a very, very high percentage rate of take-up.
Yeah.
So we make our service is very bespoke. We're very people-centred. It's a very holistic approach that we use. And we're different because every single volunteer, so think back to those 3,000 volunteers, we have met every single one of those face-to-face.
Yeah.
We listen to them first and foremost. We find out what their likes are, their passions, their aspirations, what they're good at, and even things they don't know they're good at. And then we'll match our roles to them. So we're slightly different from everybody else. We don't make you match us. We make our roles match you.
Okay. And
we find that people leave us with probably 3 or 4 different volunteering roles.
yeah.
And even if they come in with an idea that they want to volunteer for a particular organisation or cause, they will go out with another one as well, because it's the way that we engage with them, and that we talk to them about what it is that they're going to get from volunteering. And volunteering has to be very mutual. It has to be mutually beneficial.
Yeah.
So the organisation, and more importantly, it has to be beneficial to the volunteer. And if it isn't fun and enjoyable, then it's not the right role.
And what do volunteers get out of it? Why do they volunteer?
It's really, really good for people's health and well-being. It's really good for their self-esteem.
Yeah.
Lots of people volunteer for lots of different motives. But one of the things is that they want to feel valued and they want to feel appreciated.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are coming from different experiences. Some are on the road to recovery.
Yeah.
Some of them are getting over an illness, a bereavement, a breakdown in a marriage, redundancy. And this could be a new lease on life for them. It's a chance for them to try something else. But also, you have a plethora of skills that you may not realise that is good for somebody else, and your life experiences, your experience and your knowledge, you can share with somebody else, and you can bring somebody else along with that. And it's good fun. You make friends.
Yeah.
And you have a different string to your bow.
You know what's
Sorry.
you know what's interesting? I've recently read a book called Wellbeing, and it talks about the component parts that somebody needs in their life to be to have really good holistic well-being. And one of those is financial, like worrying about money is a detriment to well-being. Another one is family. Another one is health and fitness. But the one that was not the most surprising, but the one that you don't think about as much is community. So actually, well-being to improve your well-being, being actively involved in your community, be that local or the community we've built with a guy in this project or whatever it may be. Community is really important, and volunteering gives people a chance to get actively involved in the community, right?
Absolutely, and they say that if you have a strong, thriving voluntary sector, you have a strong, thriving community.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely true.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you enough the difference volunteering makes to people's lives. We've had people in here that wouldn't look up above their fringe, they wouldn't make eye contact, and leaving here after 1 hour with us, they're looking forward, they've got hope, they can see a vision, and they have aspirations that they want to achieve. And this is a good way, it's a stepping stone on the road to recovery, and it does transform people's lives. You know, it builds community cohesion as well.
Yeah.
Because it's a good way of getting to know your neighbours. It's a good way of getting to know your community. And lots of people that are new to the borough, they volunteer because they need to make friends.
Yeah.
And they want to give back.
And sorry, go on, Charlotte.
So tell us a story that best describes the work you do with the volunteer centre.
Well, we're exceedingly busy, and the difference that we see is that we do make changes. We see that we are the lifeblood of the voluntary sector, and our volunteers are very integral in that. And we always say that our volunteers are like, well, our analogy is bumblebees, and we've got bumblebees all over the place, because the humble bumblebee is the lifeblood to the ecosystem, and without the bumblebee, you know, our flora and fauna would not survive. And our volunteers are those bumblebees. They are going from voluntary sector to voluntary sector and keeping it alive, and our volunteers are that important. People don't understand the value of volunteering. And if you think about voluntary organisations, national voluntary organisations, the RNLI, St John's Ambulance,
Yeah.
air ambulances, and the Mountain Rescue. You've got 4 rescue arms there that are all run by volunteers.
Yeah.
And I know if I was out at sea in a dinghy and I was having a major problem, I would want to call the RNLI. I wouldn't be wondering and worrying if they're volunteers. I just know that someone's going to come and save me, and that is volunteering. They have expertise, and there is no just volunteer about it. Sorry, I do preach a little bit.
Look, you know what? We love the fact that people come on and they're passionate about what they do, and also, thank you for that bee analogy. We like a good animal related analogy.
My mind went on a tangent about cross pollination.
All right. So what were you? What? Where did your mind go with that?
You know, cross pollination.
What's cross pollination?
It's where they kind of mix the pollen, the stuff.
Hybrids.
Yeah, they make hybrid plants.
Hybrid. Okay, so that applies to the voluntary sector. How?
I don't know. Bees were
We haven't got that
mentioned,
yet.
It was just
We'll include that in the next analogy. So, do you think that people have become a bit kinder to each other since lockdown? And as the voluntary sector, by the sounds of it, the voluntary sector is not only more needed, but more people are getting involved. But do you think that lockdown and this threat that we feel that we're under has incentivised people to be kinder to each other?
Oh, definitely. I think, you know, if you can't be kind, don't say anything at all. And I think we need to push that be kind out to everybody.
Yeah.
There is an awful lot of kindness out there. As I say, we've got 639 new volunteers that wanted to step forward and help. And they want to help in all sorts of ways. They just want to feel like they're contributing. And it could be donating a tin of beans. It could be donating half an hour. It could be anything. I think it's looking out for your fellow man and looking out for your neighbour, you know, your school friend, your relative. Just sending out that arm of kindness. And some of the people that we've been supporting, we put little notes in the bags, we put little chocolates in the bags, and when they've received them, it has made them very emotional to think that actually someone's cared and thought about them, and they felt very alone, very isolated. And we send these bags are a little arm of kindness put around their shoulders to let them know that we are thinking of them and that we are here to help and that they do matter. And a lot of people think because they're old, and they're not all of these people that we're dealing with are elderly, some are just isolated or they're in ill health, they feel that they're actually forgotten and they're not visible and they haven't got a voice. And by what we're doing, by reaching out to them and saying, listen, we're here to help you in any way, shape, form that we can, you do matter, and everybody does matter, and that's really basically what it's about. So I'm listening to the volunteers that actually want to step up and do something, and we're also listening to the community that in response to their need.
Yeah, just a quick question. Where do volunteers find out about you at the minute, and where do people who need your help or your volunteers' help find out from you? Is it through because I live in Havering, and I didn't know about the Havering Volunteers until somebody mentioned it to me. So where do people find out about you?
Well, we're on the daily blog from the leader of the council. He does an e-newsletter every day, and he's put us on there to say that if anybody needs help, needs a check-in, we call them a check-in and chat, a volunteer buddy. We can do emergency food, prescriptions. We're even doing dog walking. We walk 20 dogs regularly.
Okay.
We take people to and from hospital. So we're on the daily blog from the leader of the council.
Right.
We have a website. We have a Facebook page, and we are also on Twitter. We send out a newsletter, and we normally it's around word of mouth. We try to get into the Romford Recorder when we can. We do things like you've invited us to do today.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get our message out there, and hopefully we are
getting there. And
we are getting there. Obviously, with these almost 9,000 calls, we're obviously
huge.
There are
Absolutely.
people that still need our support.
Yeah, absolutely. And how big's the voluntary sector in the UK? I mean, how many volunteers, as you say, you've got the RNLI and you've got St John's and you've got these places. How much of the UK does rely on voluntary work?
A hell of a lot. I have to say, and I say this a lot when I do presentations and meetings, I would love all volunteers to strike for one day, because I think that way then everybody would realise how many volunteers there actually are helping everybody every day that you don't realise the volunteers. Volunteers are very, very professional people. They're not all, in thinking that, they're just volunteers. They're very professional, but they take what they do seriously. Yeah. And I think if volunteers were to strike for one day, the workforce in this country would survive. Okay. I also don't believe that the voluntary sector is the third sector. I hate it when people call us a third sector, because we're equal. We're equal partners, because without the voluntary sector, the other two sectors, whatever they are, would not survive. And part of the voluntary sector, we have an organisation that we would get our policies and procedures from, and sort of an overarching organisation called the National Council of Volunteering Organisations, NCVO, and every year they do an almanac. I can't say that word, an almanac.
That's an amazing word, but I wouldn't know how to say it. Is it almanac? Is it almanac? You know what I always think when I think of almanac? I think of Back to the Future 2, right? And the reason being is because, do you remember we bought that almanac, that it had all the sporting answers, and he cheated, didn't he? Yes. But I'm sure, looking back to Back to the Future 2, I'm sure they called it an almanac, but I'm not sure whether that's the right pronunciation.
So that'd be the word stick in your brain today. How many times
almanac.
did you get the word almanac in your
you know
I'll put
what?
on the list.
Well, you know, it's just gone on the list. Apparently, I'm now. If it goes on the list, I'm now obliged to use the word almanac
How
quite
do
a
you
lot.
spell that?
But yeah,
Right,
well,
so
you can look it
in
up.
answer to your question,
Yeah,
there are, from this almanac, there are roughly 166,854 voluntary and community organisations in the UK.
yeah, blimey, yeah.
And roughly, into last year's stat, there are 20.1 million volunteers.
20.1 million.
Okay, I think we are on.
That is quite a percentage.
Well, it's huge, yeah. I mean, you're looking at a third of the population volunteer at one stage in the
If you're very good at maths, you can work this one out. Is that the NCVO also say that a volunteer will save an organisation roughly £13 an hour. By them giving their gift of time, they will save an organisation £13. That's obviously in paying someone's wages, recruitment fees, etc., etc. So if you work that out, most volunteers, and I always do a baseline figure, most volunteers will volunteer 1 hour a week. They do much more than that, but you've got to start somewhere. 1 hour a week, 13 times 7 times 20.1 million. That will give you the total of the saving that volunteers
of the hours.
The economy of the UK.
Yeah, it's a huge amount. Absolutely huge.
You're in the billions.
Yeah.
You're into the billions.
Yeah.
I think it's like 7 billion when I worked it out last night.
Yeah.
I can't remember the figure.
It's all right.
So that's why I say it's never just a volunteer. And if I hear anybody saying, "Oh, I'm just a volunteer," I have to correct them, because your gift of time and the effort that you're giving to the community. And I also through this campaign, you hear about the heroes. We call ours Havering Heroes, and you hear about the frontline workers. And I have to say, not once in any of those do you hear about volunteers being frontline workers. If you think about what we're doing here, we're putting our life at risk here every day, coming in and say, I haven't missed a day since the lockdown's been on, that our volunteers have been here helping the community. We are also frontline workers.
Yeah.
You never hear about volunteers. You hear about NHS and NHS volunteers. But actually, the local community volunteers helping the local community. We were there before, we're there during, and we will be here a long time after everybody else has gone back back to where they came from.
Yeah.
So, I think we really need to shout loud and proud about our volunteers. I say, for without some, organisations would not be able to survive.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've been an amazing advocate of the volunteers and the local volunteer centre. So thanks for coming on and sharing your story. I know you mentioned the website. Can you just let us know where people can find you specifically? It's www. Shelley, can you hear us?
Yep. haveringvc.org.uk.
www.
You broke up a little bit, but I can hear you. So
Amazing.
Our website is www.haveringvc.org.uk.
Amazing. And we'll put that on the show notes.
Yes, we will.
To share it. Thanks for coming on again. We really appreciate your time. But now it's time for the answers to the question in the podcast. What's your most unusual Google search in quarantine? And we've got some amazing answers to this one.
Only about hemlock.
None of them are about hemlock. None of them are about poisons in general, Charlotte. That is a strange thing to Google.
No, it's not.
Steve Dan has picked one where I don't think he's going to be alone in Googling this. Where can I buy toilet paper? He Googled that. Judith Hitchens said, what colour is teal? And did Damon Grant from Brookside have a trial for Torquay? I don't know. And is a Piccolino crostini a real food? Trev Robinson's been Googling bike stuff, so he's been Googling how to get a padded rear end cycle leggings. Sarah Sutherland said, what were the big things in Fraggle Rock called? Well, obviously they were called the Gorgs. We know that.
Look,
You could have just asked us,
I got
Sarah.
a flaggle.
David Dennison has just jumped on, just to wind me up, just to have a go, really. He said, "How many books did Chris sell?" Now, anybody who knows me quite well, right, knows that I did write a book back in 2015.
Do you want the other one as well?
They are about the book, actually. I mean, even though the next
The
book,
original and the second
the next book I'm writing is about kindness and is about the work we've done on the Kindness Project. The first book that I wrote was about pensions and available in no good bookshops. You can't get it anywhere. And it sold all right for a little niche publication. I'm not gonna retire on it soon. Just the book sales, I've got to say. But so the answer to David's question, just in case it didn't show up on Google, was not as many as I wanted.
It probably didn't show up on Google.
Yeah, exactly. Sharon Adkins, who I know Shelley knows, said pudding rice. She's been Googling pudding rice.
You mean rice pudding?
I don't
like
know.
rice pudding.
Well, I know what rice pudding is. I don't know what pudding rice
Most
is.
people don't like rice pudding. It's so weird.
Neil Atson has been Googling Marks and Spencer's food boxes. Louise McNamee has been Googling what does the word laudable mean? And I think laudable, along with almanac, are going to be my words of the day. And then John Cook said Roger Moore 1970 in response to a Twitter trend where people were posting photos of them from 1970. We've also had a few from Twitter as well. You can tweet us at Ola Kindness, or you can find me at Chris, CHRIS, Dames, DAEMS. And Catherine Knowles has had a good one, and it's probably one that you're going to enjoy as well, Charlotte.
I haven't Googled it yet.
Will a shaved head suit me? Now, there's got to be an app out there that just, like, you can superimpose your face on a shaved head so you can work out whether it would suit you or not.
There's one where it changes your hair
Put a
colour.
hat on.
First women.
That is an idea.
Buy a bald cap.
Buy a bald cap to see whether a shaved head would suit you. And Sophie's back from shopping. She'd like to join in as well. What would you like to say, Sophie?
Hello.
Oh, you just went to say
Yeah.
hello. Yeah. Every single Zoom call, I said Zoom, add it to the list. Every single Zoom call Sophie wants to get involved with, including the podcast. So thanks for joining us today. Hope you've enjoyed the show. We're not going anywhere without one of Charlotte's jokes.
Yeah.
Prepare to be underwhelmed, Shelley. They're not normally particularly good, but we'll see how we get on.
Oh, you want me to start now? What do you call a pig that does karate? Pork chop.
Right, chop.
Pork chop.
Pork chop.
They don't get any better, do they?
No.
And on that, oh, they can't get any worse.
Oh, they could.
And on
they
that-
really could.
And on that note, have a lovely day, and we'll see you for our next episode on Friday, where we've got a Sophie's head popping into the video and a mindfulness expert talking about how to cope with stress during lockdown. So that should be a really good one. Have a lovely day, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.